Right guys, we've had a fantastic result. It's actually now technically the start of day 3 of the van conversion, but I didn't sign off yesterday, so yeah, we've managed to, by the end of day 2, we didn't even have a full day yesterday, we've got the floor, the roof and the walls and the back doors mainly insulated. We just had to wait on this recycled plastic bottle insulation to arrive, that was arriving today. So we're going to get cracking, finish off this insulation in the van, but yeah, really stoked with how far we've got. I reckon like 2 people can get the whole van insulated in about 2 days, which is pretty exciting, pretty good sort of like turnout really for us. So yeah, we're going to get started with this, see how it looks at the end, and then we can start paneling, carpeting, putting in the actual proper floor and everything like that. So let's get cracking. This is the recycled plastic bottle insulation. We absolutely love this stuff. It's itch free, it's safe, plus it's made out of recycled plastic bottles, which is really good for the environment as well. It probably isn't the best on stats in regards like insulator level, but I'll put its thermal conductivity over here. But it's pretty good, and you know, we love it, and so yeah, can't speak, blah 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 blah. One thing to remember, that with this sort of style of insulation, you don't want to really compress it into the space. You want it to keep that loftiness, that sort of airiness about it, because that's when it's at its best. Would you look at this, guys? It's like one giant white cloud in here now. We've got everywhere insulated. I'm really actually impressed with how far one of the rolls of the recycled plastic bottle insulation goes. This we bought 4 rolls. Admittedly, I think I just calculated the square meterage wrong. Well, I obviously did, but you know, it's gone a very long way. We've even gone as far as like we filled all these little gaps, you know, this, you know, making sure it's not too densely packed. And but now the van is, well, fully insulated really. Like there might be a few pockets that we could touch up, but really this is gonna be a nice van to sleep in at night. We've tried, yeah, to keep the wool insulation away from the mechanisms and not cover them up, so that, you know, potentially over time that could get gummed up with all the fibres from the insulation. So I just think that's quite important. But I do have a quick question. Is there anyone out there on the channel that has had the whole spray foam insulation thing done in their van? Because if so, I've seen like a few videos, but does that mean that they spray over all the automated cables, all of the linkages, like for the doors? Or do you cover those up? Like, I'd be just quite interested to know like that whole process. So we've just done the all-important water test. We took a bucket of water and we slowly sort of drained it out across the top edge of the window, going back and forth. Well, we did that for both windows and also the roof vent, and we have no leaks, which is a great result. Right now is probably the best stage to, well, even before this, it'd be the best stage to check that before you get all the walls up, all the paneling done, because if you find a leak at that point, then it's going to be disastrous. Right guys, we need this wall to look like this wall. We've gone around the whole edge of the window, we've got it sealed at the top, sealed at the bottom. This is where our overlapping line is. One thing to keep in mind with the double foil insulation, or what is sometimes known as Reflectix, is that it like as an insulator. Oh god, that's a bit windy. As an insulator, it works best when there's an air gap either side of it when it's finally mounted. We've definitely got an air gap behind it between it and the EPS polystyrene board or whatever. There will also be a gap when the paneling goes up, but obviously where it meets on the ribs where the paneling screws through, there's obviously going to be touching, but that's not a major issue. This will still work really well as a vapor barrier and another layer of insulation. But yeah, just something to consider, guys. So you can see there when it's finally mounted, there'll be an air gap between the EPS and the double bubble foil insulation. Wow, that's hard to do while you're holding a camera. Well guys, it's another day and we are cracking on. So today's job, well for now, is we're going around the edges where that are hard to cover by building lots of like wood structure, and we're covering them with carpet. So instead of a white edge like this going to the edge trim here, we've now got this section carpeted on this corner. It looks really nice. It's a definite upgrade because these areas are obviously very hard to cover in wood, and there's no point trying to cover them wood because that's a lot of time and labour, materials and weight for something that it can be much more easily covered with just this automotive carpet. As I'm sure a lot of you already know about automotive carpet, but this stuff is fantastic. You can get in lots and lots of colours, and it has a very, like, if I just put the camera down. So the great thing about this stuff is it's really stretchy, but in all dimensions. It's not just like stretchy one way but then doesn't pull the other way. This stuff pulls in all dimensions, which means that when you get to, so like let's take this straight edge, if I keep pulling this out, you can see it, like you can make curves and it fits into all the little crevices and edges and weird contours that, you know, trying to cover with wood is a nightmare to do. And the other really important thing to use with this stuff is obviously you need to use an adhesive, a spray adhesive. Make sure that you either get the, well usually they're sold in kits, but if you buy the glue separately, make sure you get the high temperature stuff. If you get like the sort of normal standard glue, it doesn't really hold up well. It starts to potentially sag and drop off because of the heat to the van. So you need to get the actual proper high temperature spray adhesive. One thing else I want to point out is we're trying to basically get the carpet to go underneath the trim here, but we're like cutting it so it's only just going under the trim. We're not trying to push it all the way up to the actual edge of the metal, because if it goes up to the edge of the metal, it's going to space this out and potentially get water seeping in from the other end and percolating around and coming out and into the carpet and then into the van space, which is definitely not what we want to do. Some of you may be asking, why aren't you just carpeting the whole van? Well, it's just not necessary for this conversion. We are going to be putting panelling on, so really we just need to get the carpet to go around the edges and behind the panelling by, you know, like a few inches at least, because there's no point wasting all that carpet material for something you're never going to see for no reason whatsoever. Plus, because of this sort of double bubble foil insulation, we're trying to keep it so it's working at its absolute best with that sort of like air gap either side, and we don't want to weigh it down with spray adhesive and carpet on one side where we don't need to. Now I know what you're thinking. I just said a second ago we want to not cover up the double bubble foil insulation, but what we're planning with this is on the roof we don't want to take up much height so that we keep the maximum amount of headroom inside the van, but we want to go for quite a striking look. So what we're planning is that we were going to somehow get the roof to be black or a dark colour and then make birch slats go the length but with negative space in between, so you just get this really beautiful look at the end of it. So we've decided to cover this in carpet because it's actually going to be the lightest, quickest, easiest and probably best way to do it really for this situation. We just need to trim the excess, make the edges look neat, and then really that will be ready for getting slats on later down the line.